Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl.
That's
I
good.
mean it too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey, football fans, welcome to the Washington Command Center. So, today I want to talk about this offense and how our team could see a shift from our defensive identity to that of an offensive juggernaut to begin this new era of Washington football. An era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. And what better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the first, the real, the OG Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. And while you're at it, ring that bell, hit that like button. It's free to do and it means a lot. I'm knocking on the door to 1,000 subscribers. I need less than 15 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, please consider putting me over the edge so I can add live streaming to my content and hopefully be able to get out a lot more videos. Thanks. Okay, so I know there's a few of us that are all in and brimming with excitement for what our offense can be around Carson Wentz. While there's a lot of fans that are less than excited, doubtful, or straight up pessimistic about it, but I think the majority of fans are skeptically optimistic or in wait and see mode. With, them understanding that at his worst, Wentz will be a big improvement over Heineke. And I'm here today to try to excite the fandom, to present my case to the less enthusiastic fans for why I think we are set to blow the roof off the NFC. Not just the NFC East, but the whole conference. It's a conference that's got considerably weaker in this offseason, in my opinion. Some of the big guns that would have been able to keep pace with us, they took big hits. Division rival Dallas lost 4 offensive starters. Just gone. Wide receiver 1, right tackle, left guard, wide receiver 3. The NFC Kings in the North, Green Bay, lost Devontae Adams, wide receiver 1, along with wide receiver 3, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that nobody's talking about. Seattle became a non-factor with trading Russ away. The Cardinals lose Hopkins, who's coming off injury anyway, for the first 6 games of the season with suspension, and they could possibly start out 0-3 with their schedule, playing Kansas City, the Rams, and the Raiders right out of the gate. So with them, they have a little chance of making it up and making it to the playoffs in their division, I think. So I don't think they're going to be in a spot to contend. The Saints lost Sean Payton and their franchise left tackle, along with 2 high-end starting safeties. So I just honestly don't see the Saints, as a big threat, even with their massively underrated defense. Tampa Bay, with Tom Brady back, should remain the top team in that NFC South, but I'm not scared of them either. We beat them last year with Heineke and a ton of injured or ill players out of the game. I know that their secondary was kind of crippled by injuries too, but we just have made massive improvements offensively. I think in the NFC, the defending champs, the Rams, and their division mate 49ers, along with the Vikings, will be the toughest teams on our schedules. but I think we can compete with anybody with how dominant I think our offense can be. I know a lot of fans consider us a defensive team. We have a defense oriented head coach. We have a longtime former head coach as our DC in Jack Del Rio, that's a defensive mind. And we have a ton of draft capital and money tied up in our defense. But I think our offense is going to take over the identity of our team this season. Now, don't get me wrong, I think our defense is going to give us the edge we need to come out, in those tough games. But I think out of the gate, our offense around Carson Wentz is going to show up in a big way. I think a lot of fans are just going along with the media type oversimplification of, Carson Wentz's performance. They're doubting him or flat out writing him off without looking at any context, you know, of his career at all. Like, this is a team sport. Carson showed very early the kind of elite talent he has, having the MVP type season in his second year. And he did that without much support around him at all. First off, he's never had an elite or even high tier wide receiver one around him. A declining Alshon Jeffrey and, Michael Pittman Jr. have been the best wide receivers he's had. And I don't see either of those guys as a high tier one. Pittman's a pretty good wide receiver too. And Alshon had flashes early in his career, but he was definitely in a decline. I don't think many people would consider them legit wide receiver ones. Like, honestly, would you? I don't think many people. I just don't think that he's had the best tools. He had Zach Ertz to lean on early on, and finally, Dallas Goedert start to break out a bit in 2019, the year before, Wentz was shipped off. But when your tight end is your best pass catcher, the best guy you have, even if he's elite, he still isn't worth the same as a legit wide receiver one. Not even an elite one, just a legit one. And even with a bad group, Carson still made it work, with nothing really around him. Because in Philly, he did have great pass protection. And his performance really started to dip as, his pass catchers got worse in Philly and they got injured. And then when it really dipped is when he got injuries to that offensive line. He really had nothing left to work with. And people don't give that any thought. They're just like, oh, Carson Wentz just started sucking one day. You got to look at the team around him. This is a team sport. The media is hyping Indy, or did hype Indy, as some spectacular situation for him. But how good was it really from a passing standpoint as a quarterback? He was behind the 30th ranked pass per unit in the NFL, almost as low as you can be. And his one wide receiver, two tier pass catcher was all he had. Michael Pittman had to be his top guy. He had nothing else. And it's nice to have a dominant run game to lean on, especially for how it can affect coverage. But what good does it do if, you're under instant pressure when you are passing the ball? Or you only have one reliable pass catcher that you have to throw open to get production from anyway. It's not like Pittman was out there getting separation. Wentz just had to put balls where only Pittman could get them, and hope, production out of him. And he still ended up only throwing 7 interceptions with 27 touchdowns. People are treating Matt Ryan as the supposed savior for Indy. And I hear Washington fans wishing we had gotten him instead. And this guy was just 3 interceptions short of matching the first year starting that Taylor Heineke had. Like Taylor Heineke was 20 and 15 touchdowns and interceptions. Matt Ryan was 20 and 12. So, I mean, how much better of a situation would he be here than what we had last year? But listen, I mean, if you listen to most people, you think Carson Wentz was a turnover machine, and he had a rough rookie year and a rough 2020 with his team falling apart around him. But I'd almost be willing to argue that Wentz is that same 2017 MVP caliber player, while the circumstances around him have just gotten worse. And for all the criticisms about his play style, it is 100% a product of the expectations placed on a quarterback. Yes, Wentz plays his balls off every play because the team around him has been straight trash. And he has had to play that way to have any chance of meeting the expectation of elevating or putting the team on his back. You know, he's not what's failing. The team he's had around him for most of, his career has just been beyond elevating. And that changes here in Washington with what he brings to the team. I thought we had more than enough weapons to return to that elite level performance for Carson Wentz that he had in 2017. Just him coming here. And that was before the draft. Then we drafted a top tier wide receiver to go along with Terry, Curtis, and Diami, who would have already been the most talented group he's played with. Jahan just puts us over the top. Cole Turner at tight end joins Logan and John Bates, along with some high potential undrafted guys who could, break out with Wentz's help. They got Samus from Sammy's that we got last year. Maybe he could break out with Wentz. Armani Rogers, Curtis Hodges. We have a lot of weapons at tight end now, too. Now, he'll be behind a line close to the level that he had for his MVP caliber season in Philly. That was, before it started getting banged up, like he's going to have close to that level of production. And while we ain't, the Colts rushing attack, he might have an even better complement to his passing game out of the backfield here. Because Gibby, JD, and Curtis, they all have a great ability to catch out of the backfield, which is contrary to what Commanders fans have been saying. They early on, they're like, oh, he doesn't use his running backs, which is ridiculous. It's something he's taken advantage of when available his whole career. Miles Sanders, Darren Sproles were both getting JD level of production with him in Philly. Last year, Taylor was his third leading receiver. I mean, he throws to his running back. Don't let anybody lie to you. But along with Gibby, we now got Brian Robinson to hand it off to when Wentz wants to rest that cannon. I really think that even worse injury luck than last year would have trouble derailing Carson Wentz in Washington. And this offense, as long as he himself stays healthy, is going to shine. I think with the COVID protocols massively being relaxed, it would have to take an horrible situation to bring us down. Even having that freak double ankle sprain Wentz suffered last year, he still managed to play in all 17 games. And I expect no less behind this much better pass protection offensive line. He's going to take way less of a beating, and I think he's going to have the time to choose between multiple open targets this season. It's not going to be like anything he's ever had. I think this offense is going to be unlike anything a lot of younger Washington fans have ever seen. And, well, at least from us. Maybe we've seen it for some other teams, but it's unlike anything they've ever seen come from Washington. And I think we might see a lot of runs on early downs, but I think we will see a healthy dose of 20 personnel on third downs, with Terry and Diami flanking Dotson in the slot, with Gibby and Curtis running routes out of the backfield. I really think if we throw that on the field, it's going to be unstoppable. I think empty backfields in the red zone with Logan, John, and Cole in the mix is dirty too. I think we just have too much talent on this offensive side of the ball to not be wildly successful with a QB like Wentz, who's been turning chopped liver into gourmet pate most of his career. But now he's got prime USD cuts to work with, and he's about to serve the whole NFC. Now, Carson might not, he might be the chef here, but Scott Turner is making up the menus, and he's been dying to get a quarterback with Wentz's ability. And it's going to be explosive. I see a lot of fans hate or question Turner's play calling, and I think he's been in the same boat as Wentz, doing the best he can and even making magic at times with poor tools. Last year, we lost a lot of weapons with injury and illness at different times, while he's never had a quarterback that can execute his offense to its potential. Turner showed that, he could move the ball with his scheme alone a lot of times, which, is a great showing of his ability. Last year, he had Heineke that knew his offense fairly well, but didn't have the arm ability to execute the most important parts. So, Scott's awesome at using those RPOs, sweeps, motion, and the run game in general to draw defenses down into the box before he gouges them for big chunks. Heineke just didn't have the arm for those big chunks. So Scott had to work the jab all season long without being able to drop in the overhand or load up on a hook. And we were still able to win, a lot of close decisions that way because of Scott's game plan. At the end of the day, I think even the fans, are overlooking what we've assembled offensively. Even with all, the injuries we had last year and Heineke, we still got 7 wins last year against the toughest schedule. And again, I've harped on this a few times before, but the 27-7 that Wentz was able to put up in Indy with poor protection and one semi-good weapon compared to the 20-15 that Heineke put out was good for a 77-point difference on the conservative side. And if you look at the points margin we lost by, that 77 points wins us 7 more games last season, bringing us to a franchise tying 14-win season against that level of competition we faced last year. Now, I know it's hard to say Wentz could perform the same way last year against the teams we played, but if you look at what he played last year, he still played the Bills, the Ravens, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Bucks, and the Cardinals, which looks pretty on par with our schedule from last year, if you ask me. And he still ended up with 9 wins with what he had to work with in Indy. So It's hard for me to believe Wentz won't do monumentally better with the protection and the weapons he'll have here. Wentz comes here and he gets to play his division and former team from last year that he's, got a little used to with way more firepower. I really don't understand the doubters. I think this team is poised to be an offensive juggernaut in this new era of Washington football, an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. And I think our defense is going to step up right beside them and demand respect too. I'll be talking about them in a video coming up soon. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe here to the Washington Command Center so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. Like I said, I'm under 15 subs at the time of this video, away from 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, please consider doing that. And if you stayed this long, I love y'all. Peace.